A year and a half ago, I set out to play and review every single crypto game, but after playing so many I've lost count, we've learned that pretty much all of them are irredeemable garbage. Shovelware, asset flips, and outright scams. It's been quite the journey. Time and time again, I was told that I need to come back later, it's too early. Crypto games are a new concept, and new technology takes a while to catch on, you know? That's why they're so bad. Or at least that's what the few supporters of these games tried to tell me. Well, plenty of time has passed, and with how many millions of dollars these games have raised, I think it's fair to expect some significant improvement. I guess that means it's about time for me to revisit some of my favorite crypto games. Of course, these aren't my favorites because they're good. Quite the opposite. These 4 examples stuck with me due to just how bad they are. Decentraland, a realm of promise where creativity and capitalism collide. Splinterlands, a mesmerizing tale of mismanagement and malaise. Kryxivia, a fantasy world of squandered potential. And last, but certainly least, Undead Blocks, GameStop's finest. I'm sure you've just been itching to know what happened to each one of these games. Did the investors make a profit? Can you even play them still? These questions and more will be answered in today's episode of Performance Report. Decentraland was born at the cusp of Web3, raising over $20 million in startup funding in 2017. This blind optimism would be carried through to the product's initial public launch in 2020, with Decentraland making headlines thanks to the hilariously high prices of its virtual land.
I'm not selling it until it's worth at least 10 million.
But by 2022, the bubble had long since burst, and it was revealed that despite the platform's valuation of $1.2 billion, they only had less than 1,000 active users. This rise and fall of Decentraland has already been thoroughly documented and discussed by both myself and others. Its piss-poor optimization and bafflingly high cost leaves it feeling more like a mid-2000s tech demo never meant for public eyes. But Decentraland is more than a game. It's a creator-focused metaverse, a platform owned by the people, for the people. And by people, I mean those with a disposable income and an interest in crypto. Not exactly the biggest pool of potential clients. This led to the platform almost immediately trending towards 2 distinct subsets: advertisers and staunch libertarians. The latter of these comes as no surprise. This anti-government and self-custodial mindset is a core tenet of cryptocurrency, and it always has been. This is also not a problem in isolation. If this is what they want to turn the platform into, and if this is what the users want, then go ahead, do whatever. But this is a creator-led platform, and if these are the only people who are bothering to build, the appeal only narrows. Decentraland itself is an amalgam of components and subcomponents designed to be as decentralized as possible. While the game client itself was created in the Unity game engine, content for Decentraland must be built using their proprietary SDK. This means that all in-game experiences must adhere to the limitations of the SDK, and there's nothing a developer can do to get around them. According to the official Decentraland documentation, here are a few of the limitations. Control must always be maintained by the player, and they cannot be moved by the game. Real-time gameplay is not recommended due to immense lag. All games should be turn-based whenever possible. There is no physics engine. If you want to have physics, you'll need to find a way to code it yourself. Your game cannot be larger than the plot of land you purchased, and if you want to build something bigger, you'll need to buy more land. Your game controls must be limited to basic movements, jumping, point and click, or primary and secondary mouse buttons. These engine constraints alone are more than enough to make a majority of game ideas fundamentally impossible. And don't forget, you have to own land to build anything in the first place. That could easily cost you hundreds to thousands of dollars. The barrier to entry here is astronomical, and in a world where a platform as simple and popular as Roblox exists, anyone seriously looking to make and publish games would never choose Decentraland. Therefore, the only people who actually built things in Decentraland were people who were invested in the project. This includes many of the project's corporate sponsors. Wow, I can't wait to jack into the Metaverse and explore the official Deutsche Bank virtual experience, says a man held at gunpoint. So here's the 10,000-foot view. Decentraland is a community-owned platform that serves to foster true ownership and freedom from censorship. If you want to build something, you gotta buy land, which even at today's rock-bottom prices, still costs over $300. And even then, you're extremely limited in what you can build. So, can you guess why Decentraland failed? Proponents argue that it's the media's fault. Poorly researched hit pieces frame the game as a disaster without even giving it a fair chance. The game is buggy and laggy because it's so futuristic and decentralized. Anyone criticizing Decentraland just doesn't understand. Stop making fun of us because we allow players to name themselves with slurs. Censorship is evil. Decentraland is the first truly decentralized video game, and that's what makes it special. Of course, none of these features are remotely intriguing to the average gamer. Most people just want to play games and have fun, and unfortunately, Decentraland simply would not be considered fun when compared to nearly any other product on the market. Regardless, it sure is entertaining to point and laugh, so let's re-download the game and see how little it's changed in the past 2 years. Apparently, they're working on creating an updated version of this client, with plans to release it later this year. Looking at the teaser footage, it's certainly an improvement, although it might be a misallocation of efforts. It's still the same turd, just with a fresh coating of rainbow sprinkles. Yummy AI-generated slop. Glad to see my custom characters still here. Genesis Plaza, the initial spawn point for all players, has undergone a bit of a renovation. Diving into the wormhole in the center takes us to some sort of a bar scene, populated with strange NPCs.
Clearly you just put on whatever rags you slept in and think that's an outfit. Let me tell you something, you don't cause a good impression on me like that.
There we have it. Within the first 90 seconds of playing the game, someone is already making fun of me for being poor. How fitting. The walls of the bar are adorned with crypto cringe, with the seemingly mandatory references to Pepe the Frog and Elon Musk. There's also an NPC with a text-to-speech voice, and you can chat with them. This is a necessity, as due to the low player count, you'll likely never encounter another real human to interact with.
Hey there, Jolton. What adventures have you embarked on in the vast expanse of Decentraland today? Maybe we can go on a quest together.
Alright. Let's go.
Alright, hold on to your pixels, Jolton.
Okay. What just happened?
Welcome back, fellow traveler.
And this is why ChatGPT is not a substitute for proper writers. This NPC is telling me to go on a quest that does not exist. Well, it looks like there's nothing else to see here, so I open the world map in search of anything interesting. Just looking at the player counts of the most popular experiences should tell you how far Decentraland has fallen. The top 10 most visited plots have a cumulative player count of 214, with that accounting for 99.9% of currently online players. However, I'm not sure most of these players are humans, and you'll see why in a second. Meta Game Mall is a Metaverse gamify mall that is operated by Meta Live Studio and Meta Doge. We hold a huge event called MetaMine, where players meet brands. I'm not sure what any of that means, but this is the most popular experience in all of Decentraland, with a player count of 65. I don't know why I set my expectations anywhere above the floor, but I thought this was going to be a game. Instead, it's one of the most dystopian creations you could imagine. Pressing collect coins takes you to the main gameplay loop, and you're teleported to a moving platform. This platform carries you on a fixed path while assaulting your ears with an ice pick. You don't have to do anything at all. The platform moves on its own, carrying you through coins that release a shrill note each time they're collected. As you travel along the path, take in the beautiful scenery. Billboards, paid for by the mall's many sponsors. This is the Metaverse, being force-fed advertisements on an endless loop while receiving compensation in the form of funny money to be spent on branded merch. I can't handle this any longer. I gotta get out of here. A quick jog around the corner reveals a poorly modeled muscle doge who presides over what appears to be some sort of board game. Without any hesitation, I click the pop-up, informing me of a challenge in the Catgirl Arena. Welcome to Catgirl Arena. Here, you will need at least one water card in your deck. Are you ready to play? Consumes 20k soul. Unable to hear her properly due to my lingering tinnitus, I accept her challenge, only to learn that, apparently, I don't have enough souls. I need to meditate to recover. Not sure how to do that. Do they mean in-game or in real life? But what's this? It seems that the owner of the neighboring plot has constructed some sort of anti-Joe Biden mausoleum, complete with NFTs commemorating the Norfolk Southern chemical train derailment. Funnily enough, these NFTs aren't even for sale. The owner paid to purchase this plot of land and to mint each one of these pictures as an NFT, just to create whatever this is. I wonder what compels someone to think that this is a good idea. Exiting the church through a wall with no collision, I continue to explore the other plots in the Joe Biden Catgirl district, only to find nothing more than abandoned plots featuring white squares where NFTs used to be. Due to the platform's devastating failure, many of the once well-kept plots showcasing JPEG collections have fallen into disrepair. These white squares dot the landscape of Decentraland, indicating a broken link in place of what used to display an NFT. Or in some cases, you'll find protest pieces criticizing Decentraland for their poor leadership and declining revenue. One person complains in the official Decentraland Discord regarding their neighbor's behavior. Their plot, which once hosted a thriving game, has been transformed into an incessant pop-up ad, displaying to anyone within render distance. Once the #1 parcel in terms of 3D gameplay, OG's farm has been defunded by corrupt Decentraland legislators who see software developers as hobbyists who deserve $0 per hour. This game is being ported to Roblox. Subscribe to our YouTube to learn the dangers of Decentraland and why it should probably be banned in the USA. Sorry buddy, that's his land. He can do whatever he wants. Returning to the disappointingly empty world map, I can't help but notice how sad this looks. While Decentraland was never exactly a bustling world, speculators sure did make it seem like the future. But it seems like most of the people who bought land in the metaverse failed to develop anything at all, leaving the map looking sparser than your average Minecraft server. The MetaZoo International Temple of Beats. This eternal nightclub remains active, lights ablaze, yet I'm likely the first visitor in months. Feeling more like Fazbear's Pizza than a music festival, the abandoned husk is eerily silent as the music appears to no longer be functioning. Polka Dot Party. Interacting with a large red button causes a video to attach itself to my groin. Of course, it's a video about the blockchain. Who would have thought? Unable to remove this crypto chlamydia, I teleported away as quickly as possible, arriving at the Habitats Tower. This is a museum of sorts designed to showcase a variety of NFT art pieces. Except there is no art on display. Instead, it's nothing but under construction signs. In a last-ditch effort to search for fun before leaving Decentraland for good, I teleport to the second most popular game, Soul Magic. Is the engine so bad that it's impossible to get text to stay within a box, or is everyone making these games just incompetent? And who can forget the classic proximity-based music? Because remember, this is Decentraland, and all audio must exist within a 3D environment. Due to the complete lack of instructions, I began clicking every button in sight to no avail. My attention was turned to the only place on this plot that has any other players, some sort of well. Clicking on this well allows me to meditate, and as long as I hold the left mouse button, the number on the top left increases. How many points did I need to fight the cat girl? 20,000? Standing here only awards less than 10 points per second. I'd have to sit here all day before I can even attempt that battle. No wonder why everyone here is AFK. Oh boy, this is enough Decentraland to last a lifetime. I think I'm starting to feel ill. I traveled to a few more plots, but none of them seem to be working properly. With how objectively terrible my experience has been, it's a mystery as to how this game has any fans at all. But apparently, it does, and Decentraland continues to be maintained by the few remaining community members. These folks spend countless hours of their free time developing new wearable NFTs or playable experiences, all in hopes of an eventual influx of players. But it makes me wonder, is it the sunk cost fallacy that keeps them involved? Do they really love the game, or are they just delusional? Perhaps it's a mix of all three, but there's really no way to know the true sentiment behind Decentraland. With their official Discord having strict moderation that removes any negative comments, or FUD, a squeaky clean facade is maintained. Turning to the Decentraland DAO website, we can take a look at the decentralized leadership behind the project. A DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization, is a group of terminally online crypto bros that roleplay as leaders of a make-believe company. Also, since there's no sole leader of a DAO, it makes it much more difficult for the SEC to charge them with the sale of unregistered securities. With Decentraland, all decisions are put to a vote, including moderation, project direction, and the spending of treasury funds. Votes on these proposals are granted based on how many Decentraland assets you hold, such as NFTs or land plots. Essentially, the largest whales hold the majority vote. Scrolling through the active proposals reveals the rather bleak state of Decentraland, with many failing to even reach the minimum number of votes. Concerns are raised regarding the DAO's ability to operate at all, as due to a decline in participation, core roles remain vacant. In the last 30 days, expenses have totaled $350,000, while income was less than $10,000. Luckily for them, they still have millions of dollars worth of their own tokens in the bank. But with how poorly the metaverse is doing, I'm not sure those will be worth much for a lot longer. Needless to say, Decentraland was a failure. So much so that even their co-founder left for greener pastures. And by greener pastures, I mean to go start another NFT scheme. I've actually covered his new game in a previous video. You might be familiar with it. Big Time. While I may be declaring Decentraland dead, it might take some time for the community to catch on. Just a few weeks ago, they held the official Decentraland Expo in Argentina, and while it doesn't look like an event I'd ever attend, the attendees in the pictures look pretty happy. Interaction in the Decentraland Discord seems to have declined significantly, to the point where announcements hardly receive 80 reactions. When I checked the general chat channel, the only discussion in sight was an argument spanning multiple days regarding the moderators deleting messages and banning people they don't like. In general, seems like nothing but a whole lot of complaining. So why are these people still engaging with the community, even though they clearly don't like it? I'm no psychologist, but I'd reckon it's because most of them have spent hundreds of dollars on the game and they know it's a failure. But instead of just cutting their losses and walking away, they continue to further invest time and money in hope of any shred of improvement. I've said this before, but it's okay to admit your idea didn't work out. We've all wasted money on something regretful at some point. It's just a part of life. But who knows how long it might take for that message to reach the few remaining Decentralanders. It might never, and the game could continue with a skeleton crew for many more years until the money runs out. To conclude this section, my final comment on Decentraland is as follows. It's still horrible, and it really never should have been any sort of successful. Luckily for the founders, they launched into one of the biggest economic bubbles of our lifetime and made off fantastically. However, returns for the players and other investors have been nothing short of disappointing, and it would be a miracle if this platform still operated in 5 years. So with that, we say goodbye to Decentraland. Splinterlands. This was an interesting one, for sure. For this to be considered a video game, a bit of mental gymnastics are required. It's an extraordinarily simple web-based trading card game, where the only input you have is selecting which cards you bring into battle. Then, you sit and watch while the game compares the strength of your cards with the enemies and declares a winner. But due to the pay-to-win nature of trading card games, it really just boils down to a money fight, since the player with the most expensive cards will win a majority of the time. I hated this game. I still do, but it was even worse back then. The player base, while small, is artificially inflated thanks to their open policy towards bots. It's such a simple game, and due to it being completely automated, it's really only a matter of purchasing the most overpowered cards, giving them to your bot, and letting the game play itself. What made it even worse, though, was the community. When I uploaded this video, I only had 176 subscribers. Someone in the Splinterlands community saw my video, shared it on their official Discord, and asked for everyone to go leave negative comments and report my video for misinformation. Hilariously, this had the opposite effect, and thanks to their hate comments and views, it actually sent my video into the algorithm. So, thanks, I guess? But today, if you scroll through the comments of that video, you'll find that many of the game's defenders have since deleted their comments, or in some cases, their entire YouTube accounts. Now, I've come to expect it by now. There's always going to be some ravenous defender for every crypto game. But it was really eye-opening to receive such vehement hate for a video I spent dozens of hours working on. Needless to say, Johncoin is at an all-time high, while Splinter Shards have plummeted from 87 cents to 0.006 cents, a cool 99% decline. This decline in price has led to an ever-present flood of issues for Splinterlands, including company-wide layoffs, canceled or delayed features, and most importantly, a loss of players. Splinterlands was never a game that was played for fun, as evident by the community's long-standing permittance of botting or otherwise automated gameplay. Everyone here just wanted money, and I explained this quite thoroughly in my original video. But to summarize, Splinterlands is one of the pioneers of an old trend, something they once called a play-to-earn game. These were all the rage back in the earliest days of crypto gaming, despite barely passing as a form of entertainment. Unsurprisingly, they became quite popular because everyone loves the concept of free money, despite there being no such thing. This fad has died down tremendously since then, since it became quite obvious that play-to-earn games were little more than thinly veiled Ponzi schemes. In order to really play Splinterlands, you need to buy what's called a Summoner Spellbook. Otherwise, you are locked into a perpetual demo mode without any ability to earn currency at all, essentially barring progression. However, as they proudly display on their homepage, they've given out millions of dollars to people just for playing. So think of the spellbook purchase as your ticket to financial freedom. This is as much of a video game as filing taxes is. Actually, taxes might be more fun since they can be pretty complicated. Splinterlands matches are tremendously simple. Pick your cards, pray to your deity of choice, and click play. The game will roll a few dice in the background, compare card stats, and return a winner. The animation you watch is nothing but a replay. Your influence as a player has already ended. But if you're like me and prefer to use the Firefox browser, you'd be lucky to ever see one of these battles play out. Seems like for me, it just freezes up and only lets me skip to the end. Cool, I won. Too bad I didn't get anything since I didn't purchase the $10 spellbook. This spellbook allows entry into the investment scheme central to Splinterlands. And I'm not just saying it's an investment to be critical, that's how the players themselves view it. The numbers don't lie. The word invest has been used 22,000 times in the Splinterlands Discord server, about 1,000 more than the word fun. If you're curious enough to actually purchase one of these spellbooks, you'll find yourself being rewarded with a variety of Splinterlands tokens and cards. You can use the tokens to buy more cards, and I guess you could try to trade them for cash, but with how little everything's worth, you'd basically never be able to make your $10 back without spending even more money. This is because of how Splinterlands rewards are structured. In order to be eligible for a reward, you'll need to stake a certain amount of the game's tokens, called Splinter Shards. Staking is the act of locking up your tokens and making them untradeable, and it takes 4 weeks to fully unlock and regain ownership of your coins. If you don't have any tokens locked up, you can't earn anything at all. The minimum investment required is also correlated with your in-game rank. As you climb the ladder, you'll be required to stake additional tokens, otherwise you'll be ineligible for rewards. Oh, and of course, you'll need to buy better cards in order to win in the first place, so that's just another expense. At what point do I become a millionaire? Never? Regardless, this is a video game, and traditionally, you wouldn't ever expect to earn back the purchase price. That wouldn't make sense. Think about it this way. If you were playing Genshin Impact and spent $16,000 on whatever people spend money on in that game, you'd lose 100% of your spendings. This is what we call purchasing something, and in this case, there's no expectation of a return on investment. Well, you'd probably have a lot more fun playing Genshin Impact than this game, so at least you get some sort of return. Alright everyone, hold on. I've just been informed by Splinterland's legal team that they are in fact not an investment company. See, it says right here in their terms of service. But I'm not exactly sure how well that would hold up in court, especially when their former CEO describes Splinterlands as minting millionaires.
You know, we've been minting millionaires, man, and that there's no cooler calling in life than really trying to help regular everyday people like live that sweet dream. That NFT dream, and that's part of what we've been doing. We've been minting millionaires.
Investment or not, Splinterlands is a crypto game, so you can always sell all of your assets to cash out whenever. Even if it's just 10 cents, it's still more than the zero you'd get with other games. Sounds like a net positive if you ask me. I don't see why everyone's complaining about being down 99%. Anyway, there's really no point in me continuing to belittle this game, because it's clear I'm biased. I don't like the game, and I don't think it's fun. As a company, Splinterlands faces a similar trajectory to their coin. In a recent town hall session, their CEO shared that they have enough cash on hand to cover only 6 months of expenses before bankruptcy. Unfortunately, Splinterland's future has been bleak for years now, despite their constant attempts to reignite the economy. Selling more card packs, selling land, multiple Kickstarter campaigns. If it makes them money, best believe they've tried it. Clearly, their attempts have failed, and the company continues to crumble from the inside. In 2023, their original CEO and founder would leave his role to focus on other ventures within the Splinterlands company. There really isn't that much info about these other games, but it appears that Splinterlands opened a new subsidiary called Invenium. Under this subsidiary, they've announced multiple games and tokens, including some sort of soccer trading card game and Mooncart. The presence of the Bandicam watermark just goes to show the level of competence behind these projects. These two titles are in addition to the recently released companion game for Splinterlands, something called Soulkeep. Announced 2 years ago and released into open beta last month, this title has suffered perhaps the most tumultuous development period of any tower defense web game. Somehow, they managed to sell 2 million card packs for this game 2 years ago in their pre-sale. I have no idea how much money they actually made from this, but it's gotta be at least a few $1 million. Whoever they paid to make this game definitely ripped them off. I could have found 5 college students who could have done this in a weekend with a case of Red Bull and some Zins. But I mean really, if you thought this had any chance of success and invested in it based on their initial announcement, then I can't help you. I played Soulkeep for about 30 minutes, and yeah, it's as bad as it looks. It's a pay-to-win tower defense game with an intense difficulty curve, and just like Splinterlands, it plays itself. You see, unlike Bloons Tower Defense, the de facto king of the genre, there's no interaction to be had after you click start. There's no possibility for skill expression by reacting quickly and placing spikes on choke points or dropping a well-timed bomb. You can't even set targeting preferences for towers, they just attack enemies at random. And worst of all, you can only place towers on specific designated anchor points. So much for strategy. Now imagine you're a delusional Splinterlands bag holder, and you finally play Soulkeep. Your exposure to mainstream gaming ended at Pac-Man 40 years ago, so a tower defense game blows your mind. You expect that new players are going to be clamoring at the gates to get a taste. Finally, a new wave of fools to buy my bags. We're all gonna be rich. Just one small problem. It turns out that Splinterlands doesn't even own Soulkeep anymore. It would appear that Splinterlands sold the rights for Soulkeep to the development studio they outsourced to build it. Why they did this, I have no idea, as they never really gave an explanation, but I can only assume it was because they were running out of money. So what's next for Splinterlands? Probably bankruptcy, but in reality, who knows how much longer they can keep this grift going. Remember, Splinterlands started as a Kickstarter game, if that helps give you some history. These bag holders and their Discord server need to be studied. The levels of cope exhibited here are actually inhuman. The sentiment is almost entirely negative. Everyone complains about how much the game sucks and how much money they've lost, yet they're still here every single day. On the outside, they pretend that they love the game and sing its praises on any social media post, but in reality, everyone's just waiting for the next big pump so they can finally get out. Splinterlands is hardly a game, and based on how their players talk about it, it seems like they agree. In fact, they all but admit it's nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. Everyone wants to earn, but the only way to do that is to find a new mark to pass your bags onto. And unfortunately, finding new blood is more difficult than ever. Looking at Splinterlands' public stats, it appears that only 727 new players have purchased a spellbook in 2024. Since you can't really do anything in the game without the spellbook, this can pretty much be treated as the number of new players who signed up. Of course, since we have no real idea how many of these are just second, third, or 50th accounts for a bot farm, the real number of new players could be as low as 0. So, will 2024 be the final year of Splinterlands, or will they somehow make a turnaround? I mean, it's pretty obvious. Just look at this amazing gameplay and the fantastic card artwork that you truly own. Who wouldn't want to play Splinterlands? Kryxivia was one of the longest episodes of my NFT game review series. This video is a favorite of mine, and it's where I really started to get my footing and found my voice as a content creator. However, it's also a video with which I have many regrets. I missed a lot of important points, and I didn't even realize it until months later. I fell for it. Well, not really. I didn't give them any money, and I still scored them a 28 out of 100, so even though I fell for their veneer of legitimacy, I still thought it was a terrible game. But how did they fool me? What did they do that so many other crypto games couldn't? First off, let's look at the game itself. I thought it was a pretty impressive feat for a small, inexperienced indie dev team to have put together a somewhat competent attempt at an MMO. It was tremendously buggy, boring, and horrifically balanced, but it worked, and that was a lot better than many of the other crypto games I played before. I would soon realize a few months later that this was nothing more than an asset flip, and a poorly disguised one at that. This is the Blink RPG Builder, a Unity asset store package that served as the base for the game of Kryxivia. Now, using this isn't inherently a problem, but it does discount much of my praise for the game, considering how little their product deviates from the template. Knowing how much of the legwork they were able to skip, the terrible enemy balancing and level design is even more baffling. How much effort did they really put into this? Aside from this, a number of security vulnerabilities were found in the game shortly after my video. Most importantly, the game has no anti-cheat at all, and it was laughably easy to speed hack or become invulnerable. I also found a way to grant myself admin access, and while unfortunately I lost all footage of this, I do have a single screenshot remaining as proof. At the time of my video, Kryxivia had a player base fluctuating between 5 and 0, and I shared my doubts regarding the project's future. The CEO of Kryxivia even took some time out of his busy day to leave a comment on my video, although when I returned to get a screenshot of it, I found that he had deleted it. If I remember correctly, it said something like, "We are an indie team, don't criticize us. Remember how bad World of Warcraft was in alpha? Look at them now." Well, that's a very good point, Mr. Kryxivia. So let's see just how your game is doing, a year and a half later. Heading to Kryxivia's website, I try to launch the game in my browser, only to find it loading forever. Strange, but maybe it's just an issue with the web version. So I try to download the desktop client, but the page to do so seems to be a 404. Uh-oh. Good thing I just so happened to actually have the installer somewhere in my backup storage, so let's give that a try. It would seem that Kryxivia has shut down their servers entirely, leaving the game completely inaccessible. What happened? As usual, we turn to their official Discord server. While the invite link on their website appears to be dead, I just so happen to have my secret undercover account parked in their server. This looks like a ghost town. What's going on? The few messages that have been sent in the past few months seem to indicate that the project is dead and completely abandoned. In the time since uploading my original review in February 2023, the game would only receive 2 updates, one in July and another in September. Then, the development team would go silent. According to their community manager, this was just because they're hard at work. Big things are coming soon. Be patient. This false hope would continue to be spread for months, but the 4 remaining players would get bored and silently quit. Some vigilant users would notice that the development team had all left the Discord server and updated their LinkedIn profiles to show that they were working on new projects. This extended to the CEO himself, and while he's still in the Discord server to this day, his LinkedIn states that he started a new crypto project. In April 2024, the silence would eventually be broken, and Frederick, the CEO, would share a message on the game's Telegram channel. "We may find some energy to pivot all our game to a new cycle through mobile, but would require market help, but need to face reality. Kryxivia is is over at current stage, he says, attaching a screenshot of Kryxivia's dismal token chart. At this point, token values had plummeted over 99% to become functionally worthless. Worthless to you guys, but not to him. Since Kryxivia raised over $1 million in initial token sales, they still made a killing on this scheme. Would this mean that Kryxivia is technically a rug pull? I would say yes, since they never updated their website or even made an official announcement acknowledging the game's closure. Their tokens and NFTs are still available for purchase, and their website seems to indicate that the game works just fine, except for the fact that, it doesn't. But it's not unheard of for a game to shut down when faced with financial uncertainty. It happens all the time. However, most of these games don't solicit their players for money through the sale of unregistered securities. Nonetheless, with Kryxivia officially dead, there's nothing for me to add. It's no surprise that this happened, of course. My initial video suspected that their business model was unsustainable, since their only source of income was through transaction fees. Without any players, they would never make any money, and because the game sucked, they would never get any players. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Kryxivia, you served us well. You were a sketchy, lazily constructed cash grab that failed to deliver anything of substance, and I had a lot of fun deconstructing and picking apart every aspect of your game. You will be lost forever among a sea of your peers, failed crypto games that made a select few insiders very wealthy, but left hundreds of investors holding dust. Where do I even begin with this one? Undead Blocks is a blockchain-enabled first-person shooter. Finally, you can truly own your weapon skins, thanks to the integration with the GameStop NFT marketplace. Unless you forgot to migrate your assets when they shut that down. That's right, Undead Blocks was one of the front-page champions of this now-defunct venture from everyone's favorite dying brick-and-mortar pawn shop. Thanks to this partnership, Undead Blocks was able to tap into the pure idiocracy found within the cult of GameStop shareholders. My review of Undead Blocks was perhaps one of the most negative I've ever shared. The product was devoid of any creativity, and instead it was designed from the ground up to extract money from the wallets of morons. The game that was delivered was a bare-bones, horrible-performing piece of garbage that served as little more than the minimum required product to start selling microtransactions. These microtransactions existed in the form of exclusive weapon skins, which range from a pink recolor to a green recolor. Wow. But why would anyone ever purchase one of these skins when the game doesn't even have functional multiplayer? How am I supposed to flex on the pores? Owners of the NFTs are instead granted access to the game's exclusive VIP mode. In this mode, playing the game will earn rewards in the form of Z-Bucks, which can be exchanged for real money. Since the game only has one map, I envy the willpower of anyone who actually sat here and played this for long enough to accumulate Z-Bucks. I guess it's good that it's practically impossible to lose as long as you keep moving in a circle. Also, like many other crypto games, there wasn't a shred of anti-cheat. This led to a litany of issues, and the developers found themselves in a sticky situation. Players were making too much money. Soon enough, the developers would disable the ability to automatically claim rewards. Instead, they would manually review every single player's gameplay footage to make sure they didn't cheat, and only then would they give people their money. Expectedly, this worked horribly. Players would complain of endless waits to receive their payouts, some expecting to receive thousands of dollars in tournament winnings. Wait times would continue, updates would cease, and the team would grow silent. 6 months after withdrawals became subject to manual review, the team would return to share some unfortunate news. Withdrawals would be halted for the foreseeable future, and their founder Grant would be stepping away from the project for personal reasons. Has the project run out of money? Many would suspect as much, and silence would resume until December 2023. The team would then come crawling back to announce that withdrawals would resume. The cult of loyal bag holders would awake from their slumber to celebrate, although festivities were cut short after a discovery was made. The Undead Blocks white paper had been modified to remove the team page, which had links to the founders' personal LinkedIn pages. Navigating to these profiles would reveal that many of the founding members of Undead Blocks have left for a new company, something called Doppel.ai. This website appears to be some sort of AI chatbot, which allows you to interact with copyright-infringing models of your favorite pop culture icons. Naturally, the player base was in uproar. Undead Blocks was supposed to be the future, and players were promised a great game that would pay them for playing. The founders seemingly abandoning the project definitely isn't a good sign. Coincidentally, Grant would return from his hiatus around this time, proudly sharing the news that withdrawals would return in a few days, but only 30% of your accumulated Z-Bucks, and the minimum withdrawal amount is $100. This withdrawal pool would be open for about a month before becoming depleted. The team would then share that they will refill the pool as soon as they gain full control of the project. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that point. Are you still following this? To make a long story short, the withdrawal pool still hasn't been filled, 7 months later. They keep saying that they're trying super hard to get it working, but it gets delayed every time. Grant has returned from his personal leave to take control of the project again. According to him, the long hiatus was due to their previous outsourced development team holding the source code hostage. Now, this is the funniest part. This game hasn't received a meaningful update since it entered beta 2 years ago. The Undead token is down 95% with hardly any liquidity left. Nobody has withdrawn money in months, and basically everything that was promised has turned out to be a lie. The community turned on Grant, calling him a scammer, reporting him to the FBI, the SEC, and even their moms. But as soon as Grant came back and said withdrawals will be turned on, the mood switched. It's hilarious to go back and see the exact same people who were calling this game a scam a year ago now hyping it up today. It's fascinating that anyone still has trust in this project's leadership at this point, considering the fact that they seem to lie and delay constantly. Alas, the mind of a bag holder is never one we can fully understand. Anyway, that's the story, or at least to the best of my understanding. It's really not even worth re-downloading this game to see if it still works, especially since they're asking me to run it as an administrator. I think I'll pass. Obviously, I have no faith in the success of this project. Grant has removed all references to Undead Blocks or Wagyu games from his LinkedIn profile. Clearly, he doesn't want to be associated with this piece of shit either. If they ever manage to release those 2 maps that they promised 2 years ago, I will personally invest $13 into Undead Blocks.